The hatch is closed. You are safe down here in the cellar. Out there on the highways, cutting through nowhere, drivers are alone with their thoughts. Or so they believe. Tonight, we're talking about the open road. Those long, dark stretches where you're trapped in a metal box, hurtling forward at 70 miles per hour, watching the rearview mirror. I have 4 stories for you. Stories from people who checked that mirror and saw something that couldn't be there, who heard breathing that wasn't their own, who realized far too late that they'd picked up a passenger they never let in. So settle in, keep your eyes forward, and whatever you do, don't look in the back seat. Let's begin. I should have taken the interstate. That's what I keep telling myself, even now. The interstate would have added 40 minutes to the drive, sure, but it would have had lights, other cars, witnesses. Instead, I chose Clinton Road, that notorious stretch of asphalt cutting through the woods of West Milford, New Jersey. I'd driven it 100 times before. My headlights knew every curve, every pothole, every roadkill deer that never got cleared away. It was 11:47 p.m. when I passed the old Cross Castle ruins, the ones hidden back in the trees. I remember checking the clock because I was making good time. I remember thinking I'd be home by midnight. The ruins were my last landmark before the dead zone. 18 miles of nothing but trees pressing in from both sides, their branches forming a tunnel over the asphalt. No cell service, no houses, just darkness, and the hypnotic rhythm of yellow lines disappearing under my hood. That's when I first checked my rearview mirror. I don't know why. Just habit, I guess. Making sure no one was tailgating me in the middle of nowhere. The back seat was empty. Of course it was empty. I kept driving, following the snake of the road through the pines. The radio had died miles back. Nothing but static once you got deep enough into the forest. I'd turned it off. The silence was better than that hissing emptiness. Except the silence wasn't complete. There was my breathing, the engine's low rumble, the occasional tick of the turn signal when I navigated the sharper curves, and something else, something so faint I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. A rhythm that wasn't mine. I held my breath. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. There it was, soft and steady. Someone else breathing. My eyes snapped to the rearview mirror. Still empty, just the dark back seat. The folded jacket I tossed back there that morning, my gym bag. I exhaled slowly, laughing at myself. The sound was probably coming from outside. Wind through a cracked window, air pressure, something mechanical. Old cars make noises. That's what they do. I cracked my window anyway, just to equalize things. The breathing continued, unchanged. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I told myself to focus on the road, on getting through these 18 miles. 12 to go now, maybe less. The trees were starting to thin out a little, which meant I was getting closer to Route 23, closer to civilization. That's when I saw her. Just a flicker in the mirror. A pale shape in the back seat behind my right shoulder. I jerked the wheel, overcorrected, nearly sent the car into the ditch. My heart was slamming against my ribs as I straightened out. As I forced myself to look again at the mirror. Nothing. Empty back seat, my jacket, my gym bag, shadows from the passing trees. But I'd seen her. I knew I'd seen her. "Hello?" My voice cracked. "Is someone—" I twisted around in my seat, taking my eyes off the road for just a second to look directly at the back seat. Empty. Completely empty. When I turned back to the road, I'd drifted into the oncoming lane. No cars coming, thank God, but my hands were shaking now as I corrected course. I was breathing too fast, hyperventilating almost. This was stress, exhaustion. I'd worked a double shift, been awake for 19 hours. My brain was playing tricks. That's when the smell hit me. Perfume. Heavy and sweet, like gardenias left too long in a closed room. Funeral flowers. The scent filled the car, impossible to ignore. And I knew. I hadn't smelled it before. It had just appeared, like someone had leaned forward from the back seat, like someone was right behind me. Pull over. The voice was a whisper, right behind my ear, soft and cold and absolutely real. I screamed. Actually screamed. My foot slammed the accelerator instead of the brake, and the car surged forward, eating up the yellow lines. 80 miles per hour. 90. The trees became a blur. Pull over, she said again. Closer now. I could feel breath on my neck. I couldn't look. I couldn't turn around. If I acknowledged her, if I confirmed she was there, my exit appeared like a miracle. I yanked the wheel right, tires screaming, and suddenly I was on the ramp, slowing down, seeing streetlights and a 24-hour gas station blazing with fluorescent white. I pulled into the parking lot and sat there, engine running, every light in the car on. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Slowly, terrified, I turned around. The back seat was empty. I checked 3 times, opened the back doors, looked under the seats. Nothing. No perfume smell, no breathing. Just my jacket and my gym bag, and the lingering certainty that I was losing my mind. I made it home 20 minutes later. Checked the back seat twice more before I went inside. That was 3 weeks ago. I've taken the interstate ever since. The long way. The safe way. But sometimes when I'm sitting at a red light, I catch movement in my peripheral vision. A shape in the back seat that shouldn't be there. And when I work up the courage to look, really look, it's always empty. Always. But last night I found something wedged between the seats. A small, tarnished locket I've never seen before. When I opened it, there was a black and white photograph inside. A woman in a white dress smiling at the camera, standing on Clinton Road, right by the Reservoir Bridge. I still have the locket, and sometimes, late at night, I swear I can smell gardenias. The headlights appeared around mile marker 34. I noticed them the way you notice anything in your rearview mirror on a deserted highway at 1 a.m., with mild irritation, and then immediate dismissal. Someone else making the long drive across the Mojave, probably as tired as I was. The road between Victorville and Barstow was always empty this time of night. Just you, the asphalt, and the endless scrubland stretching into darkness on both sides. But these headlights were bright. Too bright. High beams, I realized. The white glare filled my rearview mirror completely, turning the reflection into a blazing rectangle of light that made my eyes water. I flipped the mirror to its night setting, but even dimmed, the brightness was overwhelming. I could feel it pressing against the back of my skull, a physical presence. I tapped my brakes twice. The universal signal. Hey, dim your lights, asshole. The car behind me didn't slow down, didn't dim its lights. Just maintained that exact same distance, maybe 50 feet back, close enough that the glare turned my rearview mirror into a useless white void. Fine. I'd let them pass. I moved into the right lane, slowing down to 65. Waited for them to surge past me in the left lane, probably giving me the finger as they went. They didn't pass. They moved into the right lane behind me, slowed down, maintained that same 50-foot distance. A prickle of unease crept up my spine. This wasn't normal driving behavior. This was deliberate. I moved back to the left lane, sped up to 75. The car behind me moved to the left lane, sped up. The headlights never wavered, never changed distance. That white glare boring into my mirror, into my eyes, into the base of my skull where a headache was starting to bloom. I tried to see what kind of vehicle it was, but the high beams made it impossible. All I could make out was a dark shape behind the light, something car-sized, maybe an SUV. No details, just that relentless, burning brightness. My headache was getting worse, the kind that starts behind your eyes and spreads, making your temples throb in time with your heartbeat. I squinted against the glare, adjusted the mirror again, but there was no escaping it. The light filled the car's interior, casting harsh shadows across the dashboard. Every time I glanced at the mirror, which I couldn't stop doing, the brightness seared across my retinas, leaving purple afterimages. 40 miles of this. 40 miles of that car matching my every move. When I slowed to 60, it slowed to 60. When I accelerated to 85, pushing my old Honda harder than I should have, it stayed right there. 50 feet. Never closer. Never farther. Like we were connected by an invisible tether. The headache was pounding now. I could feel it behind my eyes, in my sinuses, radiating down my neck. The constant glare was like having someone shine a flashlight directly into your face for half an hour straight. My vision was starting to blur at the edges. I tried to reason through it. Road rage. Maybe I'd cut someone off miles back without realizing it, and this was their psychotic way of expressing displeasure. But that didn't make sense. Road rage was aggressive, tailgating, honking, trying to run you off the road. This was something else. This was patient, methodical, following. The word dropped into my mind and wouldn't leave. They were following me, matching my speed, my lane changes, my every movement, letting me know they were there. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. The headache had spread to encompass my entire skull, a tight band of pressure that made it hard to think. Every glance at the mirror sent fresh spikes of pain through my eyes. I wanted to close them, to block out that relentless glare, but I couldn't. I had to keep checking, had to keep confirming the car was still there. It was always there. Mile marker 74. 10 miles to Barstow, to gas stations and street lights and other people. The thought of civilization ahead was the only thing keeping me from panicking completely. But what if they followed me into town? What if they followed me all the way home? The headache was making me nauseous now. Bright spots danced in my peripheral vision. My mouth was dry, metallic tasting. The glare had become a physical thing, a weight pressing against my brain. I had to do something. The rest stop appeared on my right, just a pull-off area with a single streetlight and a concrete picnic table. No bathrooms, no phones, nothing. But it was something, a place to stop, to confront whoever this was. I flicked on my turn signal and pulled onto the gravel shoulder. My heart was hammering. My headache was so intense I could barely see straight. Behind me, the car's turn signal came on. It pulled over too. We sat there 50 feet apart, both engines idling. The high beams were still on, still blinding. I couldn't see anything beyond that wall of light. Couldn't see who was driving. Couldn't see what they wanted. My hand hovered over the door handle. Should I get out? Should I drive away? My head was pounding so hard I could barely form coherent thoughts. Then, slowly, the driver's door of the other car opened. No interior light came on, just darkness inside the vehicle, and that open door swinging wider. Nobody got out. I waited. 5 seconds, 10, 15, nothing. The door just hung there, open to the night, the high beams still blazing. My headache surged, a wave of pain so intense I gasped. I squeezed my eyes shut for just a moment, trying to clear my vision, trying to think. When I opened them, the door was closed again. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking. The screen's glow made my headache scream, but I opened the camera app, zoomed in on the car behind me, through the viewfinder. Past the glare of the headlights, I could finally see the windshield. There was something pressed against it from the inside, a face, pale and flat, mashed against the glass like something was trying to push through. No features I could make out, just that white oval, flattened, distorted, and no one in the driver's seat, no one at all. My phone slipped from my hands. I threw the car into drive and floored it, spraying gravel, fishtailing back onto the highway. I didn't look at the rearview mirror, didn't check to see if they were following. I drove straight through Barstow without stopping, straight through to home. Another 100 miles, with the mirror flipped up so I couldn't see behind me. That was 6 days ago. The headache never fully went away. It's always there now, a dull throb behind my eyes. And at night, when I'm trying to sleep, I see that brightness, that relentless burning glare. Last night I heard gravel crunching in my driveway. When I looked out the window, there were high beams shining through my bedroom curtains. I didn't go outside to check. The lights were still there at dawn. Alligator Alley is 78 miles of nothing. That's what they don't tell you when you're planning your route across Florida. They call it I-75, make it sound like any other interstate. But once you hit that stretch between Naples and Fort Lauderdale, you realize the truth. It's just you, a ribbon of asphalt, and the Everglades pressing in from both sides, black water and sawgrass and things that move in the darkness. I'd made the drive before, always during the day when you could at least see the landscape, watch for the alligators sunning themselves on the banks. But this time I'd left late, and by the time I merged onto the alley, it was past midnight. The road was a tunnel of headlights cutting through absolute darkness. No other cars. No lights except the occasional reflective mile marker flashing past. Just that straight, endless highway with the swamp on both sides, invisible but felt. The weight of all that stagnant water and prehistoric life. The smell hit me around mile marker 30. Swamp water, that thick, organic rot smell that gets into your sinuses and stays there. I checked my windows, all closed, but the scent was somehow inside the car anyway, like it had seeped through the vents. That's when I saw him, a figure standing in the middle of the road, dead center of my lane. I slammed the brakes, yanked the wheel right. The car fishtailed, tires screaming, and for a horrible second I thought I'd lose control, go careening into the swamp. But I straightened out, heart hammering, and looked in my rearview mirror. The figure was gone. Not gone like they'd jumped out of the way, gone like they'd never been there at all. The road behind me was empty, illuminated by my taillights. Just asphalt and the painted lines. I eased off the brake, hands shaking on the wheel. A trick of the light, maybe. Exhaustion. I'd been driving for 6 hours straight. Your mind plays games at this hour, especially out here where there's nothing to look at, nothing to anchor your attention. I passed a road sign. Do not pick up hitchhikers. Prison area. The letters were faded, barely visible in my headlights. I'd forgotten about that. There was a correctional facility somewhere out here, hidden back in the swamp. The sign was supposed to warn you about escaped convicts, but it had always seemed ridiculous to me. Who would hitchhike on Alligator Alley? There was nowhere to go. Nothing but swamp for miles. I accelerated back to 70, trying to shake off the adrenaline. Just 15 more miles to the Fort Lauderdale exit. 15 miles and I'd be back in civilization. That's when I heard it. Drip, drip, drip. Soft and steady, the sound of water hitting upholstery. I glanced at the ceiling, thinking maybe I had a leak, condensation from the AC. But the headliner was dry. The sound was coming from behind me, from the back seat. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The angle was wrong. I could only see the top portion of the back seat, mostly shadows, but I could hear it clearly now. That wet, rhythmic dripping, like someone wringing out a soaked towel. "Hello," my voice cracked. The dripping continued, unchanged. I reached up, adjusted the mirror, tilting it down to see more of the back seat. There was something dark on the leather. A puddle, spreading slowly. And the smell, God, that smell. Swamp water, so thick I could taste it. Algae and decay, and something else. Something that had been in the black water a long time. My hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel. I couldn't pull over. Not here. Not on Alligator Alley in the middle of the night with miles of swamp on both sides. I had to keep driving. Had to get to the exit. The dripping was getting louder. Or maybe I was just focusing on it more, unable to think about anything else. Drip, 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 steady as a heartbeat. I pressed the accelerator. 75, 80. The car shuddered slightly. I was pushing it too hard, but I didn't care. 10 more miles. That's all. 10 more miles and I'd be at a gas station under lights, around people. That's when I heard the breathing, wet and labored, like lungs full of water trying to draw air. Right behind my seat. I couldn't stop myself. I twisted around, taking my eyes off the road, needing to see a hand, pale and waterlogged, pressed against the back of the passenger seat. Fingers spread wide, dripping black water onto the upholstery. The nails were torn, dirt, or maybe algae, packed underneath them. I whipped back around, a scream trapped in my throat. The road ahead was still empty, still straight. I was doing 90 now, the wheel vibrating in my hands. "Please," I whispered. "To who? To what? Please, I didn't hit you. I swerved. I missed you." The breathing grew louder, closer. I could feel it on the back of my neck now, cold breath that smelled like stagnant water. In the rearview mirror, I saw movement, a shape rising from the back seat, slow and dripping. Something that had been lying down, folded in the shadows, and was now sitting up. I couldn't look directly, couldn't turn around again. I kept my eyes locked on the road, on the mile markers flashing past. Mile 35, mile 36. I didn't stop, I said, my voice shaking. I'm sorry I didn't stop." A hand appeared in my peripheral vision, pale and dripping, reaching forward from the back seat, reaching for my shoulder. Mile 37, the hand touched me. I don't remember pulling over, don't remember stopping the car. But suddenly I was at the Fort Lauderdale exit, parked in the emergency lane, and the passenger door was hanging open. The back seat was soaked, black water everywhere, the seats, the floor mats dripping from the ceiling. The smell was overwhelming, But there was no one there. I searched every inch of that car, checked the trunk, looked under the seats. Nothing. Just water that shouldn't have been there. That was 2 weeks ago. I've had the car detailed 3 times, shampooed, sanitized, everything. The smell won't go away. That swamp water rot is still there, faint but persistent. And sometimes, late at night, I hear it. Drip, 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 coming from somewhere in my apartment. A sound that shouldn't exist on the 3rd floor. I haven't driven I-75 since. I never will again. But last night I found wet footprints leading from my bathroom to my bedroom. Barefoot. The prints of someone who'd been walking through black water. They stopped at the foot of my bed. I'd forgotten the baby monitor was still in the car. It had been sitting on the dashboard for 3 days, ever since I'd brought Emma home from my mother's house. I'd meant to take it inside, reunite it with its transmitter. But between the exhaustion and the endless cycle of feedings and diaper changes, it had slipped my mind. The little white receiver just sat there, its power light glowing faintly green. Dead battery, I'd assumed. No reason for it to be active. I was heading home from a late shift at the hospital. The first time I'd been away from Emma for more than an hour since she was born. My husband David was home with her. I'd checked my phone twice already. No missed calls, no texts. Everything was fine. The roads were empty at 11:30 p.m., just me and the occasional semi-truck passing in the opposite direction. I'd taken the back way home, cutting through the old Packard plant district in Detroit to avoid highway construction. It was a route I'd driven 1,000 times, past the crumbling brick warehouses and empty parking lots, reclaiming the earth. I was thinking about Emma, about whether she'd taken her bottle, whether David had remembered to burp her properly. That's when the monitor crackled to life, static first, then a sound that made my heart stop. A baby crying. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. The crying was coming through the monitor speaker, distorted and distant, but unmistakable. That particular pitch, that rhythm, it sounded like Emma. But Emma was at home, 20 minutes away. I grabbed my phone, nearly dropping it, and called David. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Hello? His voice was thick with sleep. Is Emma okay? I heard the panic in my own voice. What? Yeah, she's... Hold on. Rustling sounds, footsteps. Yeah, she's asleep right here in the bassinet. Why? The crying through the monitor was getting louder, more distressed. Are you sure? I was speeding now, doing 50 in a 35 zone. Check her, please. More sounds. Then David's voice, confused. She's fine, Sarah. She's breathing. She's asleep. What's going on? The crying stopped abruptly. Just cut off mid-wail, replaced by static. Hi, nothing. Sorry. I'll be home soon. I hung up before he could respond. The monitor sat there on the dashboard, its green light pulsing steadily. The audio bars on its side were still moving, registering sound even though I couldn't hear anything now except the white noise hiss. Then I remembered. The transmitter. The monitor was a 2-part system. The receiver I was looking at and the transmitter, the part that actually picked up sound and broadcast it. The part that was supposed to be in Emma's nursery. But it wasn't in her nursery. It was in my trunk. I'd packed it 3 days ago, along with Emma's diaper bag and extra clothes. I'd meant to bring it inside when we got home, but I'd only grabbed Emma and the essentials. Everything else, including the transmitter, was still in the trunk, which meant someone would have to be in my trunk for the monitor to pick up sound, or near it. My pulse was hammering in my ears. I checked the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty, dark. Just my purse on the seat, the familiar clutter of a young mother's car. Burnt cloths, a pacifier, an empty bottle. The static through the monitor shifted, deepened. And then I heard it. Not crying this time, whispering. A voice low and distorted by the cheap speaker, saying something I couldn't quite make out. Repetitive, like a chant or a prayer. I turned the volume up, my hand shaking so badly I nearly knocked the monitor off the dashboard. Watching, watching, watching. I pulled over, slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a stop in an empty parking lot next to the shuttered Packard factory. Security lights cast harsh yellow pools across the cracked asphalt. The whispering continued, clearer now. Watching you. Watching, baby. Watching. I sat there, engine idling, staring at the monitor. Every instinct screamed at me to drive away, to go home, to never open that trunk. But what if someone was actually in there? What if they'd been there since? Since when? Since I left the hospital? Since I got in the car? The whispering stopped. The monitor's audio bars went flat. Just dead air. I had to check. Had to know. I grabbed my phone, turned on its flashlight, and got out of the car. The night air was cold. My breath came out in white puffs. The parking lot was completely empty, surrounded by chain-link fence and dark buildings. I walked to the trunk, put my hand on the release button. The monitor crackled back to life inside the car. I could hear it through the closed door, crying again. But not a baby this time, an adult. Someone sobbing. Great, heaving sobs that sounded wet and desperate. I pressed the trunk release. It popped open with a soft click. The trunk was empty. Just the spare tire, jumper cables, Emma's diaper bag. And there, nestled among the baby supplies, the transmitter. Its power light glowing red, active, broadcasting. But there was no one there. Nothing that could have made those sounds. I reached for the transmitter, then stopped. There was something on it. Something wet. I shone my phone's light closer. A handprint. Small, child-sized, pressed into the plastic casing like someone had grabbed it with wet fingers. The sobbing through the monitor was getting louder, more frantic, and underneath it, barely audible, that whispering again. Found you, found baby. I slammed the trunk shut, ran back to the driver's seat, threw the car in drive and floored it, leaving rubber on the pavement. The monitor was still active, still broadcasting that horrible crying. I grabbed it, ready to throw it out the window, but my hand froze. The crying had stopped, and in the sudden silence, I heard breathing, right behind me. I made it home in 12 minutes. David was waiting at the door, confused by my frantic call. Emma was fine, safe, asleep. I threw the monitor away that night. Both pieces, smashed them first, then put them in the outside trash. But sometimes, late at night, I hear static, coming from Emma's nursery. And when I go to check on her, I find tiny wet handprints on the window, from the inside. And just like that, we're back. The hatch is locked. You're safe down here in the cellar, away from the roads that stretch into nowhere. Away from the rearview mirrors that show things that shouldn't be there. Away from the back seat. You made it through tonight. 4 stories, 4 roads, 4 passengers who were never invited. Out there, beyond these walls, the highways are still dark. The mile marker still counting down. And somewhere, someone is checking their mirror right now, seeing headlights that won't pass, smelling perfume that wasn't there a moment ago, hearing breathing that isn't their own. But you're here, with me, where it's safe. If you want to stay safe, if you want to keep coming back to the cellar when the roads get too dark and the night gets too long, hit that subscribe button. Lock yourself in, because there are more stories out there, more highways, more things waiting in back seats. And I'll be here, waiting for you. Until next time, keep your doors locked, check your mirrors, and whatever you do, don't look in the back seat.